Streaming only on Peacock, a new original comedy.
Me in a punk band?
We Are Lady Parts.
A confused mix of hash anthems and sour girl power.
You puked all over the front row. Ew.
We Are Lady Parts. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Winning comes in all shapes and sizes. Every day there's an opportunity for a win, just like scratchers from the Virginia Lottery. Everyday grab and go, everyday giftable, everyday fun. It's where anticipation meets instant gratification. And they're satisfying to scratch, no matter the outcome. Like the new Virginia Lottery Scratcher Colossal Cash. It's loaded with $100 to $500 prizes. Now, that's an everyday win. Drive to the nearest Virginia Lottery retail location and pick up a scratcher today. Odds of winning any prize, 1 in 3.21.
He's very famous. He is a big deal, and he knows it. He is Dave Fox on The Drive on a Monday. Dave, how are you, pal?
I'm well. How are you doing? How was your weekend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Low-key weekend, a lot of basketball, a lot of hoops, walking the new dog all the time. How's your weekend? Good?
Same thing, minus the walking the dog.
So the Foxes aren't dog people? I don't think I knew this.
No, we had a dog. Little Molly. She was great, and she made it about 15 years, and we just haven't had a dog since.
Oh, I see. So you forgot to feed the dog, and it died.
Yeah, something like that.
All right.
No,
no, I'm just playing. Let's start with Utah basketball, the head coaching search.
Oh, baby.
Dave, no, there are very few people that are as well positioned to comment on this than you. You've been here a long time. You saw the great Majerus era. You know that this basketball program has great pedigree. I think the fans will come back if the right guy is in there winning basketball games and also reinvigorating a fan base. We know that the money is there. I mean, Larry was the 13th highest paid coach in college basketball. So here's the question. Thought on the Larry Kraskowiak era now that it's over, and who do you think Mark Harlan should hire?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. First of all, going back to where you started with all this, this is a much more attractive job than it was even in the days when Majerus had it, simply because they're in the Pac-12. We all know that. And it pays a lot of money. It can pay a lot of money. We know that because Larry Kraskowiak made a lot of money. Who do I like? I like the guy a lot of people like, Alex Jensen. But as people keep pointing out, they believe stay in the NBA and will eventually have an opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA, and making the move to college may not be the right thing. But doesn't it just seem like the perfect fit? Kid grew up in Utah, played for Utah, coached under the coach that coached him at Utah. I mean, it just seems almost too perfect. And none of us really know what's going on in the mind of Alex Jensen. But I love that fit. And then second might be Johnny Bryant. Remember when Johnny Bryant left him? And I had you on 5 questions, by the way. And you brought up the point that this is something where Jazz fans should worry a little bit about Donovan Mitchell because he loved Johnny Bryant so well. And, he loved him because he was great at coaching. So there's another guy. And, it gets back to the old, there's no experience there as a college coach, certainly a college player, whereas Alex Jensen does have experience as a college coach under Majerus. But that's 2 of my favorites right there. And I just think Alex would be a perfect fit. But, the experts out there seem to think he's destined for an NBA head coaching job, which incidentally, as well as Utah pays, NBA head coach, pays even better.
Well, and the lifestyle, Dave, as you know, is so much better. I mean, if you're an NBA assistant coach, you hop on a hotel in the sky. You eat, crab legs and sip champagne, and then you land and go to a 5-star hotel in the city, and then go play a game, and then do the same thing to come home. As you know, Dave, if you're a college coach, you take a commercial flight to Topeka, rent a car, and drive 2 hours to go see a prospect. I don't know.
Now, hang on. Not all teams do that. Gonzaga charters everywhere, and the Utes have chartered on occasion.
Well, look, without taking the whole thing quite literally, Dave, and giving me a flight. A situation where we're documenting one flight against the other. You understand my point. My broader point is college coaches have to grind in a way NBA coaches don't.
That's exactly right. And if you're in a position, I think we all agree Alex Jensen's not that far away from a head coaching job in the NBA. And if that's the case, and if you're Alex and you believe that, making a stopover at the University of Utah isn't going to help that situation, I don't believe.
All right, Utah State out of the NCAA tournament. BYU out as well. I really thought BYU had a good chance against UCLA. I think BYU fans got a little spoiled last year with TJ Haas and Jake Toolson and Yoli Childs, and it's hard for a program to replace 3 pros like that unless you're, one of the bigger programs. I thought they were a good, not great team. I'm not all that surprised they're out. And obviously, I think Utah State was a little offensively challenged too, even though on defense they were great. So your thoughts on the 2 local teams, one and done in the tournament?
Well, I'll start with BYU, and I agree with you totally. I actually thought their seed was a little higher than who they are. Again, a lot of people feel this way. Wouldn't you have loved to seen what last year's team could have done in the tournament? It's too bad that this whole mess hit when it did, because that would have been a lot. It just would have been so much fun. But I agree with you. BYU ran into a situation where the type of team they face just doesn't fit well with their skill set. And I think when the day the bracket came out, a lot of us thought that they were probably in trouble in that case. And, in a way, you could almost say the same thing for Utah State. Keita is a beast, and I think he'll, make a nice NBA player. But overall, you're talking about a team that plays in the Mountain West and in BYU, a team that plays in the WCC. And other than taking on Gonzaga, that doesn't really prepare you all that well for the NCAA tournament. San Diego State's a perfect example of that. So I'm not entirely surprised that those 2 things happen. I think for BYU to be successful in an NCAA tournament situation, Spence, they've really got to have a good team like they had last year, not a team that looks pretty good, and let's see what they can do to get to the dance. That's not the type of team that gets it done. A perfect example, if we could go way back, Coach Majerus, he always recruited and built teams to shine in the NCAA tournament. He didn't care what they did in their conference tournament. When they went to the NCAA championship in '98, they lost the opening game of the WAC tournament, and it didn't do a thing to him. He didn't care about that. So that's the difference. I just don't think those are NCAA tournament built teams in Logan and Provo, at least not right now.
Back to Utah for a second. What do you think? Because as you and I have talked about, when I was in school there, late '90s, early 2000s, we planned nights around basketball games. Let's meet at dinner, grab some pizza, then go up to the game or whatever. It's been so long, Dave, since it's been like that, and it has to be something deeper than winning, because even Jim Boylan had a couple of decent years, and Ray Giacoletti had a tournament team. You mentioned the 2 tournament teams Larry had, one with DeLon and Jakob that almost beat the national champ Duke team, and still the Huntsman Center was empty. What do you think has to happen for Ute fans specifically to be reinvigorated about the basketball team, and how much of it do you think has to do with the fact that we're now kind of a college football town and Kyle's done such a great job with the football team?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with it. If you go back to that Majerus era, the football team was good but not great. And again, they weren't in the Pac-12. That instantly jumps you to a whole nother level. And football is king in a conference like that, as you well know. Although, by the way, the Pac-12 is doing very well in the NCAA tournament. But I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, you can't go to a tournament a couple of times and, all the fans are back. It takes time. It even took Majerus, a few years. But he went up until if I'm not mistaken, he never failed to win his opening game at an NCAA tournament, which is phenomenal. So again, it gets back to how I was talking about how he built his teams to succeed there. So fans just knew he built this culture of winning that really became strong in those mid to late 90s after he'd been there a little bit. And you're right. You remember some of those 10 p.m. games? I remember, I want to say it might have been Wake Forest came in, played one of those late night. They always got those late night ESPN games, and the place was rocking. You could not get a ticket. And those days they're long gone for now. And in order to get those back, you're going to have to get, first of all, a coach that's going to stay a while. 2, he's going to create a culture of winning and in competing for a Pac-12 title. And 3, you have to go to the tournament every year. You do that, 3 or 4 years, not 2, and you're in pretty good shape.
UCLA has beaten Abilene Christian. I know BYU fans don't want to hear that. That was the 14 seed that BYU fan would have that BYU would have played if they would have won on Saturday. So UCLA advances on to the Sweet 16. The Pac-12 is now 8-0 in the tournament. We'll see if the teams tonight can keep that rolling. Dave, as you and I have talked about, and sometimes you don't love it when I say this, and I get it, for the Utah Jazz to win a championship, they have to maximize who they are and hope they get a little assistance from the basketball gods. Well, looky what we have here. Have the basketball gods finally smiled on the Utah Jazz? Anthony Davis out, LeBron James with a nasty high ankle sprain, or it is he's out 4 to 6 weeks. What does this mean for the Jazz championship chances?
Well, I still got to see how those two players are doing in early June, because let's be honest, I've seen this story before, but you're right. LeBron's injury did not look good, but you never know how quickly a team, if can get things going once the playoffs roll around. If this were a traditional season, Spence, the season would be ending in 3 weeks, and we'd be already into the playoffs. But it's not. It doesn't end till middle of May. In fact, the final Jazz game is May 16th, which is a month later than normal, which is an extra month for Anthony Davis and LeBron James to get better. So we'll see how that goes. But it's not just that. I mean, you think about, losses like to Washington and nearly losing to Toronto, recently. And there's got to be a level of consistency that's probably a little bit stronger. Certainly when you get to the playoffs, I get it. Maybe it's not, to be honest with you, it's not such a bad thing to not win 22 in a row or whatever, because the best teams normally don't do that because they worry more about the playoffs. You don't want to, for lack of a better term, use it all up in the regular season. So maybe this isn't such a bad thing, but good heavens, Spence, we don't even talk about the Phoenix Suns, and they're right on their heels. We don't even talk about the Nets. You're going to start talking about Kevin Durant. What a weird deal. But, there's plenty of other teams as well. But that's not to say that, the Jazz aren't going to have their opportunities. And, boy, when they look good, they look really good. But when it goes away, there are some glaring holes there, defensively and offensively, and nothing really matters until mid-May. When we do Spence and Dave 5 questions on May 20th, then we'll see what we're discussing.
Speaking of which, coming up on Thursday, the latest iteration of 5 questions with Spence. I like it closer to the weekend because you know me, on Thursdays I get loose.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yes, you do. That's why I did that.
All right.
And because I have no content on Thursday.
Oh, that hurts. Oh, wait, because the other days of the week are taken up by shows that I've created for you, yes?
Yeah, so basically you're filling the holes of the nights where you haven't already.
I read once, Dave, that the best way to become successful is to help other people succeed. So all I have to say to you is you're welcome.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hey,
you're the man.
Before I set you loose, let's get some spring ball thoughts. I mean, look, spring ball, to me, it's a bit overrated with the way some people talk about it. However, I know the coaches love it, and whenever Utah football is on the field, it's just better. Fans are more engaged, and Chad Bumpus has now met with the media. He is a really, really charismatic, likable guy. Honestly, Dave, he sounds a lot like Guy Holiday, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, it is.
We had some sound from Britton Covey today, and, of course, Coach Witt. Is spring ball moving the needle for you guys over at KUTV?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It does for us every year. And a couple things on this. First of all, and by the way, getting back to Chad, you're right. Fiery guy. From what I understand, the players absolutely love him. That receiver room is, one that I know Kyle Whittingham said today that they're actually looking – I think they're still looking to bring in maybe a couple of running backs and maybe shore up the receiver group. But what they have in there now with Coach Bumpus is just they're absolutely loving it. That's one. Number two, the spring game means zilch, nothing, other than it provides you with football in the spring. Now, I will say, and I know you probably don't really, this doesn't move the needle for you. It does for me because we televise it. I'm having a lot of fun with these Weber State football games. They're actual games. And, I actually watched the other day Deion Sanders, his team, I think they're undefeated, Jackson State. So that I'm enjoying that. So, but in years past, and for the most part, yeah, that spring game is the next best thing. 3, BYU, they don't really have a spring game so much as a final spring practice Friday. There's going to be an alumni game, and they're going to allow fans to attend. So that's fun. And 4, I think it's kind of fun that both schools, BYU and Utah, are in the same situation in that they're both looking for a starting quarterback, and obviously neither is going to tip their hand until they absolutely have to. And, that'll be fun next fall. The Utes open with Weber, but then they go down to Provo to take on BYU. I mean, can you imagine that? People starved to get in to actually see a football game of that magnitude. It's going to be crazy. So to answer your question, yeah, we're enjoying In fact, we'll run they do their little Zoom availabilities. And as you said, Coach Whittingham and Covey and a couple of others were available today. And we'll run some of that tonight on Talking Sports because it's football, Spence. It's never a bad time for football.
There's no doubt about that. Hey, I know Elgin Baylor was about 4 years older than you, so I'm not trying to bring this up because you're old, because you're not. You're my guy. You're in your prime. But I said earlier, Elgin Baylor, best player ever to not win a championship. Give me your thoughts on the passing of an NBA legend.
What about Karl Malone? He's a pretty good player to never win an NBA championship.
I wasn't asking you for a list of good players that has never won a championship, Dave. I said a lot of people believe that Elgin Baylor is. If you'd like to bring Carl into the conversation, we can. But do you have any thoughts on the passing of Elgin Baylor or no?
Yeah, there are a few names in the history of the NBA, in the history of any sport really, that never, ever lose the excitement when you're talking about what they did for the game. Guys like Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, certainly one of those, Dr. J. And he was one of those. And he even had success, Spence, post-career, which is gratifying to see as well. But, for you and even for I know you kid a little bit. I don't recall ever watching him play because I was young as well. But through the miracle of, YouTube and that, we all go back and we look at these historical games. It's so funny to watch the game from back in the day, isn't it? I mean, that's just a treat. But to see what a player like that could do, a player like Jerry West could do, and it goes on and on. A Havlicek for you Boston fans, and it's just really amazing. And he, without question, one of the best ever. And you're right, certainly almost a crime to never win an NBA title.
And retired in ~72, the year that the Lakers actually did go on to win it, which is a bummer.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Did you scold Fox on a Box after we surprised you with his reemergence on the Twitter sphere?
We had a conversation, but he is 32 years old and kind of making his own decisions nowadays, not under my roof. So I do what I can, but he does what he wants. So I have to live with it.
What if he sadly got laid off and had to move back in? Would you say you cannot live here unless you delete your Twitter account?
That's not a bad thought. I will keep that in mind. I think he's going to be fine. He is attorney, and you know how they bounce around anyway.
Indeed.
But if that happens, thank you. I will keep that in mind.
I'm just watching out for the Fox family.
Don't you think he's been a little more responsible on this tour or not?
I can't comment. I don't want to cause family strife because I'm just watching out for the Fox family. It's not just that I'm a fan of Dave Fox.
In your opinion, has he been more responsible, or is it the same old Fox on a box?
I think he likes to. I think he likes to entice a reaction. But you know what? So do I. So I can't judge anyone. Yeah. But I'm a fan of Kathy. I'm a fan of the kids and the grandkids. Uncle Spence is just trying to watch out for the whole group.
Uncle Spence, exactly. You're the best.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you Thursday. Appreciate
Thursday
the time,
night, my man.
You got it.
Bring it.
All right, there he is, Dave Fox over there at KUTV. Been here for like 30 years. He is obviously a legend in our market. Give him a follow on Twitter at Dave Fox 2.
Winning comes in all shapes and sizes. Every day there's an opportunity for a win, just like scratchers from the Virginia Lottery. Every day grab and go, every day giftable, every day fun. It's where anticipation meets instant gratification, and they're satisfying to scratch no matter the outcome. Like the new Virginia Lottery Scratcher Colossal Cash. It's loaded with $100 to $500 prizes. Now, that's an everyday win. Drive to the nearest Virginia Lottery retail location and pick up a scratcher today. Odds of winning any prize, 1 in 3.21. Winning comes in all shapes and sizes. Every day there's an opportunity for a win, just like scratchers from the Virginia Lottery. Every day grab and go, every day giftable, every day fun. It's where anticipation meets instant gratification, and they're satisfying to scratch no matter the outcome. Like the new Virginia Lottery Scratcher Colossal Cash. It's loaded with $100 to $500 prizes. Now, that's an everyday win. Drive to the nearest Virginia Lottery retail location and pick up a scratcher today. Odds of winning any prize, 1 in 3.21.